Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something fundamental, something that could alter the very trajectory of your life. Too many of you walk through this world with your shoulders hunched, your gaze lowered, and a story in your mind that whispers, I am not strong enough. I am not capable enough. And that is a lie, a dangerous one. Because the moment you accept weakness as your identity, you surrender your power to act, to grow, to strive for something greater. You see, life is suffering. That's undeniable. Chaos lurks at the edges of every path you walk. But the way forward is not to shrink from it. It is to confront it, to step into it with a sense of responsibility, with a willingness to bear the burden of your own potential. Because if you stopped seeing yourself as weak, if you truly grasped the strength embedded within you, everything would change. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Your mindset is the foundation of your reality. It determines how you interpret the world, how you engage with challenges, and ultimately, how your life unfolds. The problem is that most people don't even realize they are trapped by their own perception. They assume their weakness is an objective fact rather than a story they've been telling themselves for years. They say things like, I've always been this way, or that's just who I am, as if their current state is permanent, as if they are incapable of change. But this is a catastrophic way to view the world. When you believe you are weak, you filter every experience through that lens. You see obstacles as confirmations of your inadequacy rather than opportunities to grow. You hesitate, you second-guess yourself, and worst of all, you accept limitations that are entirely self-imposed. This is what psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy. The beliefs you hold shape your actions, and your actions shape your outcomes. If you assume weakness, you will act accordingly, playing small, avoiding responsibility, shying away from anything that demands effort or resilience. And in doing so, you reinforce the very thing you fear. Now you might argue that your circumstances justify this belief. Maybe you've failed before. Maybe you've been told your whole life that you're not good enough, not strong enough, not capable. And here's the harsh truth. None of that matters. The past is not a prison sentence. It is merely a collection of events interpreted through your own mind. Two people can go through the exact same experience, yet one emerges stronger while the other crumbles. The difference isn't what happened. It's how they framed it in their minds. Your brain is constantly looking for patterns, for ways to make sense of the world. If you tell yourself you are weak, your brain will find evidence to support it. Every mistake, every rejection, every difficult moment becomes further proof that you are incapable. But here's what you need to understand. That process works in reverse too. If you tell yourself you are strong, if you decide to see yourself as capable, your brain will start gathering evidence to support that belief. It will recognize the moments where you persevered, the times you showed resilience, even in small ways. Over time, this shift in perspective begins to reshape your identity, and identity is everything. It is the filter through which you experience life. If you identify as weak, you will shrink away from challenges, seeking comfort over growth. If you identify as strong, you will approach difficulty as something to be conquered, not avoided. And that single shift in perception changes the trajectory of your entire life. This is why people who experience extreme hardship, those who face unimaginable suffering, can sometimes emerge with unshakable strength. They are forced to redefine themselves, to reconstruct their understanding of who they are. They realize that they are not the victim of their circumstances, but the architects of their own response. They stop seeing themselves as weak because, quite frankly, weakness is not an option. And if that transformation is possible under the most brutal conditions, what excuse do you have? What you need to grasp is that weakness is not a fixed state. It is not an inherent trait. It is a learned perception, reinforced by repeated thoughts and behaviors. And if it is learned, it can be unlearned. The only thing standing between you and a stronger version of yourself is your willingness to challenge the narrative you've been living by. Most people wait for external proof before they change their beliefs about themselves. They think, well, once I succeed, once I achieve something, then I'll believe I'm strong. But that's backward. You must first adopt the mindset of strength before your actions and results can reflect it. This is why certain individuals rise above their circumstances while others remain trapped by them. It is not because they were born different, but because they refused to see themselves as weak. They chose to believe in their own capability, even when there was no immediate evidence to support it. They acted as if they were strong, and in doing so, they became strong. If you have been telling yourself a story of weakness, it is not because you are inherently weak. It is because you have allowed that belief to take root and dictate your actions. But beliefs can be rewritten. And that begins the moment you stop accepting the idea that your limitations are set in stone. Responsibility is the antidote to helplessness. When people feel weak, when they feel like life is happening to them instead of because of them, it is often because they have relinquished responsibility. They have allowed themselves to believe that their circumstances define them, that external forces dictate their destiny. This is a dangerous mindset, because the moment you stop seeing yourself as the primary agent of your own life, you surrender your ability to change it. You become a passive observer rather than an active participant, and nothing breeds weakness more than passivity. Taking responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that has ever gone wrong. It is not about carrying unnecessary guilt or burdening yourself with things beyond your control. It is about recognizing that, regardless of what has happened, your response is entirely up to you. It is about understanding that no one is coming to save you. No one is going to do the work for you. And no amount of wishing, complaining, or waiting will change your reality. The only thing that will is your decision to take ownership of your circumstances and do something about them. Many people resist this idea because responsibility is uncomfortable. It is far easier to blame your past, your parents, society, the economy, or any number of external factors for why you are not where you want to be. And while these factors may be real, while they may have shaped your experiences, they do not have to dictate your future. The moment you take responsibility is the moment you reclaim control. It is the moment you stop being a victim and start being the architect of your own life. There is a reason why people who take responsibility tend to be stronger, more disciplined, and more successful. It is because they do not allow themselves to indulge in excuses. They understand that every moment spent blaming external forces is a moment wasted, time that could have been used to take action, to improve, to move forward. And action is the only thing that creates change. Wishing for things to be different does nothing. Complaining does nothing. Even understanding why you are in your situation does nothing if you do not take steps to change it. This is why responsibility is so powerful. It forces you to confront the uncomfortable truth that you are not owed anything, that life does not care about your excuses, and that no one else is responsible for your success, your happiness, or your well-being. And while that may seem harsh, it is also incredibly liberating. Because if no one else is responsible, that means you do not have to wait for permission to change. You do not have to rely on circumstances shifting in your favor. You have the power to act right now. There is a reason why people who take extreme ownership of their lives tend to succeed where others fail. It is not because they had an easier path or because they were naturally more talented. It is because they refused to let external forces determine their future. They took responsibility for their actions, their decisions, and even their failures. And instead of using setbacks as an excuse to quit, they used them as lessons to improve. That mindset makes all the difference. You can see this principle at work in every area of life, The people who are physically strong and healthy are not the ones who make excuses about their genetics or their busy schedules. They are the ones who take responsibility for their diet, their exercise, and their discipline. The people who are financially successful are not the ones who blame the system or complain about unfairness. They are the ones who take ownership of their skills, their work ethic, and their ability to create value. The people who have strong relationships are not the ones who blame others for their loneliness or resentment. They are the ones who take responsibility for their communication, their boundaries, and their ability to foster meaningful connections. Taking responsibility does not mean you will never face hardship. It does not mean life will be fair. It does not mean things will always go your way. But it does mean that no matter what happens, you will not allow yourself to be defeated by circumstances. You will not wait for external factors to change before you take action. You will not allow yourself to be defined by anything other than your own decisions. The alternative is a life of helplessness. It is a life where you are constantly at the mercy of forces beyond your control, where you never feel strong because you never take ownership of your own strength. And that is a far more dangerous place to be than any challenge you might face by taking responsibility. Adversity is not your enemy. It is your proving ground. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid discomfort, running from challenges, and seeking out the easiest path possible. But this pursuit of ease comes at a cost. The more you shield yourself from struggle, the weaker you become. The more you avoid hardship, the less capable you are of handling the inevitable difficulties that life will throw at you. The truth is, strength is not something you are born with. It is something you earn. And the only way to earn it is by facing adversity head on. Look at anyone who has achieved anything meaningful, and you will find a person who has endured suffering. You will find someone who has been knocked down, who has faced rejection, who has encountered failure after failure, but refused to give up. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck is not luck, intelligence, or talent. It is the ability to withstand difficulty without breaking. It is the understanding that adversity is not a signal to stop, but an opportunity to grow. When you encounter hardship, your brain has two choices. You can see it as a sign that you are not strong enough, that life is unfair, that you should quit. Or you can see it as a challenge, a test of your resilience, a chance to develop the kind of strength that only comes through struggle. The way you interpret difficulty determines whether you rise or fall. People who view adversity as a burden tend to crumble under pressure. They complain, they make excuses. They search for reasons why things are unfair instead of searching for ways to overcome their challenges. But people who embrace adversity as a necessary part of growth develop an entirely different mindset. They welcome difficulty because they understand that every challenge is an opportunity to sharpen their abilities, to build their endurance, and to cultivate the kind of character that cannot be broken. The problem is that most people have been conditioned to avoid struggle. From a young age, society teaches comfort as the goal. It tells you to seek convenience, to find the path of least resistance, to minimize effort wherever possible. But this mindset breeds weakness, because when real challenges arise, when life inevitably throws pain and suffering your way, you are left unprepared. You do not know how to handle difficulty because you have spent your whole life avoiding it. Think about the strongest people you know. They are not the ones who had an easy life. They are not the ones who were handed success on a silver platter. They are the ones who endured hardship and refused to let it break them. They are the ones who took their pain and used it as fuel to push forward. And they did not do this because they were special. Oh, they did it because they made a choice to see adversity as a stepping stone rather than an obstacle. Hardship is the training ground for resilience. Every time you face difficulty and push through it, you become a little stronger. Every time you refuse to quit in the face of failure, you build more endurance. Every time you confront pain and choose to keep moving forward, you develop the kind of unshakable strength that no amount of comfort could ever provide. But none of this happens if you run from adversity. None of this happens if you treat struggle as something to be avoided rather than something to be embraced. This is why so many people remain stuck. They are waiting for life to get easier instead of working to become stronger. They are hoping that challenges will disappear instead of developing the ability to overcome them. But life does not get easier. It will always throw obstacles your way. The only thing that can change is you, your mindset, your resilience, your willingness to endure discomfort in pursuit of something greater. The reality is that the greatest transformations come from the greatest struggles. Pain forces you to grow. Difficulty forces you to adapt. Adversity forces you to develop the skills, the discipline, and the mindset required to succeed. If you never face hardship, you never develop these qualities. If you avoid struggle, you remain stagnant. This is why the most accomplished individuals in any field are often the ones who have faced the most hardship. They are not the ones who had the smoothest path. They are the ones who refused to quit when things got difficult. They understood that adversity is not a punishment. It is a necessary part of the journey. And instead of resenting it, they embraced it. Strength is cultivated through disciplined action. Many people believe that strength is something you either have or you don't, as if it's an inborn trait rather than a skill that can be developed. But this belief is one of the greatest lies that hold people back. Strength is not something that magically appears when you need it. It is the result of consistent, deliberate action over time. It is built through discipline, through doing the hard things, through choosing growth over comfort day after day, even when you don't feel like it. People who see themselves as weak often think they are just unlucky, that they weren't gifted with the same resilience or willpower as others. But the truth is, strong people did not start out strong. They became strong by training themselves to be. They put in the work when no one was watching. They made sacrifices. They practiced self-control. And most importantly, they did not let their feelings dictate their actions. They understood that discipline is what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. Discipline means doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. It means getting up early to work on your goals even when you'd rather sleep in. It means sticking to your commitments even when motivation runs out. It means making the tough choices that your future self will thank you for, rather than the easy choices that bring momentary comfort. Discipline is the foundation of strength because it forces you to confront your weaknesses and overcome them. Without discipline, every small challenge feels overwhelming. Every setback feels like an excuse to quit. But when you develop discipline, you stop reacting emotionally to every difficulty. You stop negotiating with yourself about whether you feel like doing something. You simply do it because you understand that your actions, not your feelings, determine your success. The problem is that most people rely too much on motivation. They think that in order to take action, they need to feel inspired, energized, or excited. But motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. If you wait until you feel like doing something, you will never get anywhere. This is why discipline is so important. It keeps you moving forward even when motivation disappears. It forces you to show up and do the work regardless of how you feel in the moment. Discipline is also what allows you to build momentum. When you take action consistently, even in small ways, those actions start to compound. They build upon each other. Over time, what once seemed difficult becomes second nature. What once required effort becomes effortless. But none of this happens if you don't start. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, if you keep making excuses, if you keep putting things off until you feel ready, you will remain exactly where you are. There is a reason why the most successful people in the world all have disciplined routines. They don't rely on willpower alone. They create habits and systems that make success inevitable. They structure their days in a way that removes unnecessary decision-making, so they don't waste energy debating whether to do something. They just do it. This is not because they are superhuman. It is because they understand that discipline is the key to long-term strength. One of the biggest misconceptions about discipline is that it limits freedom. Many people resist discipline because they see it as restrictive, as something that takes away their ability to enjoy life. But the opposite is true. Discipline creates freedom. When you have discipline, you are in control of your life. You are not a slave to your impulses, your emotions, or your bad habits. You are not constantly playing catch up, trying to fix mistakes caused by a lack of foresight. You are actively shaping your future rather than being dragged along by circumstances. A person without discipline is controlled by their desires. They do what feels good in the moment, even if it leads to long-term regret. They procrastinate. They give in to distractions. They waste time. And as a result, they never build the strength necessary to handle real challenges. But a disciplined person has the ability to delay gratification. They can push through discomfort. They can make sacrifices in the present to create a better future. And that is what separates those who succeed from those who don't. If you want to be strong, you must be disciplined. There is no way around it. Strength is not something you wake up with one day. It is something you develop through years of consistent effort. It is built in the moments when no one is watching, in the decisions you make when there is no immediate reward, in the small, seemingly insignificant choices that add up over time. Your mindset determines your reality, the way you see yourself, the way you interpret the world, the way you respond to challenges. These are the factors that shape your destiny. Most people do not realize how much control they have over their own lives because they are trapped in a mindset of limitation. They believe that their circumstances dictate their potential, that their past defines their future, that their weaknesses are permanent rather than temporary obstacles that can be overcome. But this is a lie. The moment you change the way you think, the moment you shift your perspective from limitation to possibility, everything in your life begins to transform. The problem is that most people have been conditioned to see the world through a negative lens. They have been taught to focus on what they lack rather than what they have, to dwell on their failures rather than their potential, to see obstacles as barriers rather than stepping stones. This mindset keeps them stuck. It makes them passive. It convinces them that they are at the mercy of external forces rather than in control of their own destiny. But the truth is, your mindset is one of the only things in life that you have absolute control over. You may not be able to change every external circumstance, but you can always change the way you perceive and respond to it. And that makes all the difference. One person sees hardship as a reason to give up, while the other sees it as a challenge to overcome. One person views failure as proof of their inadequacy, while the other sees it as feedback that helps them improve. One person feels trapped by their circumstances, while the other recognizes that even in the worst situations, there are always choices to be made. The difference is not intelligence, talent, or luck. It is mindset. Your thoughts shape your actions, and your actions shape your reality. If you constantly tell yourself that you are weak, that you are incapable, that you are destined to fail, you will subconsciously act in ways that reinforce those beliefs. You will hesitate. You will avoid risks. You will seek comfort over challenge. And in doing so, you will prove yourself right. But if you shift your mindset, if you start telling yourself that you are capable, that you are resilient, that every challenge is an opportunity to grow, you will begin to act accordingly. You will take more risks. You will push through discomfort. You will persist even when things get difficult. Whoa. And over time, you will prove yourself right. This is why so many people remain stuck in cycles of failure. They believe they are not good enough, so they act in ways that confirm that belief. They expect things to go wrong, so they do not prepare for success. They assume they will never achieve their goals, so they do not put in the necessary effort. Their reality becomes a reflection of their expectations. But when you change your mindset, you change the way you engage with the world. And when you change the way you engage with the world responds accordingly. One of the biggest barriers to shifting your mindset is self-talk. Most people are not even aware of the constant stream of negative thoughts running through their minds. They tell themselves they are not smart enough, not strong enough, not lucky enough. They replay past failures. They compare themselves to others and come up short. They let fear and doubt dictate their decisions. But the truth is, you are always talking to yourself. The question is, are you saying things that empower you or things that weaken you? If you want to change your reality, you must start by changing the way you talk to yourself. You must replace self-doubt with self-belief. You must stop looking for reasons why you can't and start looking for reasons why you can. This is not about blind optimism or ignoring reality. It is about shifting your focus. It is about training yourself to see opportunities where others see obstacles. It is about choosing to believe in your potential even when there is no immediate evidence to support it. Your brain is wired to seek confirmation of what you already believe. If you tell yourself that you are weak, your brain will find proof of it in every failure, every rejection, every mistake. But if you tell yourself that you are capable, your brain will start looking for evidence of that instead. You will notice your small wins. You will recognize the progress you have made. You will start to see challenges as opportunities rather than threats. And as you reinforce this new belief, it will become your new reality. Shifting your mindset is not easy. It requires conscious effort. It requires breaking free from years of conditioning. It requires challenging your own limiting beliefs, questioning your assumptions, and deliberately choosing to adopt a perspective that empowers you rather than weakens you. But the moment you make that shift, everything changes. You stop waiting for things to get better and start taking action. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and start seeing yourself as the creator of your own life. And that is when true transformation begins. Action is the bridge between potential and reality. Many people have dreams, ambitions, and a deep desire to change their lives, but they remain stuck because they never take meaningful action. They wait for the perfect moment, for the right circumstances, for a surge of motivation that will finally push them forward. But that moment never comes. The truth is, success does not come from wishing, hoping, or even believing. It comes from doing. It comes from doing. No amount of potential matters if it is not acted upon. No amount of knowledge is useful if it is not applied. Action is the force that turns possibility into achievement. One of the biggest obstacles to action is overthinking. People analyze every decision, weigh every risk, and get lost in endless deliberation. They convince themselves that they need more information, more preparation, more certainty before they can move forward. But this is just a form of procrastination disguised as caution. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start. The more you think about what could go wrong, the more paralyzed you become. Perfectionism keeps people trapped in inaction because they believe that if they cannot do something perfectly, they should not do it at all. But this mindset is a recipe for stagnation. Progress is always messy. Growth is always uncomfortable. No one starts out as an expert, and no one gets it right the first time. The only way to improve is to take imperfect action and learn from experience. Fear is another powerful barrier to action. Yes! Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of making the wrong choice. People become so afraid of taking the wrong step that they take no steps at all. But inaction is a decision in itself. A decision in itself. A decision to remain exactly where you are. The irony is that failure is not what holds people back. The fear of failure is what keeps them from ever trying. And yet, failure is an essential part of growth. Every successful person has failed repeatedly, but they did not let failure define them. They used it as feedback, as a stepping stone, as proof that they were pushing beyond their comfort zones. The sooner you accept that failure as part of the process, the sooner you free yourself to take bold action. Another trap people fall into is waiting for motivation. They believe that they need to feel inspired or energized before they can take action. But motivation is unreliable. It comes in waves. If you rely on motivation, you will only take action when you feel like it, which means you will never be consistent. The people who achieve great things do not rely on motivation. They rely on discipline. They take action even when they do not feel like it. They do what needs to be done regardless of their mood. And over time, this consistent action creates momentum, and that momentum generates its own motivation. The mind is wired to resist change. It prefers comfort and familiarity even when those things are not beneficial. This is why taking action often feels so difficult. Your mind will come up with countless excuses, convincing reasons why now is not the right time, why you are not ready, why it is too risky. But you must recognize these excuses for what they are, a defense mechanism designed to keep you stuck. If you listen to them, you will never move forward. The only way to break free is to take action despite the resistance, to push through the discomfort until it becomes your new normal. Small actions compound over time. People often underestimate the power of small, consistent steps. They believe that change requires massive, dramatic action. But in reality, it is the small daily choices that shape your future. Reading a few pages of a book each day, exercising for just 10 minutes, making one extra sales call. These actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they build momentum. But over time, they build momentum. They create habits. And those habits lead to massive transformation. Taking action also builds confidence. Most people think confidence comes before action, but the opposite is true. Confidence is a byproduct of taking action. When you step outside your comfort zone, when you prove to yourself that you can handle discomfort, your self-belief grows. Every time you push past fear, every time you complete a difficult task, every time you follow through on a commitment, you reinforce the idea that you are capable. And the more capable you feel, the more likely you are to take even bigger actions in the future. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck is not intelligence, talent, or luck. It is the willingness to take action even in the face of uncertainty. Those who succeed are not necessarily the ones who have everything figured out. They are simply the ones who start. They trust that they will learn along the way. They understand that the path is made by walking, not by standing still and thinking about it. There will never be a perfect time to start. There will always be reasons to wait, always be fears to overcome, always be doubts lingering in your mind. But if you allow those things to dictate your choices, you will remain in the same place for the rest of your life. The only way to move forward is to take action. Imperfect, messy, courageous action. Because in the end, action is what separates those who dream from those who achieve.